Okay. Okay, well I guess I gotta make a video this way. I'm gonna walk through this corridor that I walk through when I'm going to the BP here when I'm at work. I'm at work right now at Floyd Bell, and this is I'm on the lunch break. This is about 12:15 in the afternoon. The lunch is between 12 and 12:30 here. I'm walking past this to go to this apartment complex I usually like to walk around in. Well, sometimes I used to walk around in back when I a couple years ago, this health insurance company we had here was paying us money for each step. We take 10,000 steps in a day. We get $1. We get 3,000 and a half hour. It's like another $1. And if I work 6 or I think it was 500 steps in like 10-minute period, I did that 6 times away, at least an hour apart from me, there was another $1. So I get $3 every day. Now, appropriately enough, I use that money in that health savings account to join to pay for my gym membership. Although I didn't realize these disbursements were probably not. I learned a little bit more about using health savings accounts since then, but I have to be careful. But anyway, that's why I used to walk around here in the back. But now. I'm just going to walk around here until about, I figure I was going to talk about my story when I realized that I first sought God without realizing it. And here's the God I'm talking about. There's no reason not to think of this as the sun as God's power. I mean, I think that's an appropriate way just to think of this, worshiping the sun. We say worshiping the sun as being the Son of God. That Son is also the Son of God. With a U instead of an O. Well, I remember one time in 1995 or 2005. I got to remember get the decades right. I was. This was right after the city had launched it, or Columbus or Franklin. Yeah, it was Columbus. Had launched their smoking ban at bars. I gotta walk over to a place where not gonna worry about cars running into me for a second. Another thing, I got a little annoyed when Aaron called me up yesterday. I wasn't annoyed when he called me up. I was just annoyed that it was the phone. It was just the phone. I don't like talking on the phone especially when I can't hear anybody on the phone. I just don't think he realizes just how much I dislike the telephone, talking on the telephone. Just regardless, it didn't have as much to do with him. However, I wondered, I was a little impatient with why he seemed to, he had just called me, he had me come over there 2 days earlier, and then suddenly did again. I was starting to get a little annoyed by that, but why can't he ask my dad? But then he's probably asked my dad a lot of times, and he probably figured he tries to spread out. And I think that's a reasonable thing to want to do. I mean, he's not doing it because he wants to he's not asking, Aaron's not asking us to, he's not asking me to do it because he wants me to, or he wants to pick the person who's easiest to do things. He just thinks, here's somebody I haven't bothered in a while, let me get somebody else. Because he figures he's bothering everybody. Like I posted on Facebook today, I said, he never had a Dawn to tell him that he's not a pain in the ass at home, and he never had an April to tell him he's not a pain in the ass at work. Well, so I got to remember that. If I'm going to treat him the way I think he should be treated, I got to remember that he's just the same. He probably thinks everybody finds him as a pain in the ass. Well, that's what I thought. Anyway, in 2005, I deliberately looked at the sun for 5 seconds because what had happened in 2005 was something I'd have to consider myself. The first peak tyranny was the first time I think the state had reached its overprotective maximum was when they prohibited people from smoking cigarettes in bars. And I thought, bar is a place where I go to drown my sorrows and forget about how much life sucks. And now they're not going to let me kill myself where I'm in a place where I'm trying to forget about how much. I thought that was just the extreme. That was the worst thing to do. I was smoking cigarettes for 18 years, and I'd already quit. No, I didn't quit up smoking yet. I did quit smoking cigarettes later on in that year, 2005. And it wasn't because I learned that smoking was bad and no good. It was because it was just out of spite. I quit smoking in 2005 out of sheer spite of the state prohibiting people. I wasn't even drinking anymore. The only reason I would have to go into a bar would be to have an iced tea or even a soda. I was still drinking soda back then, or a cup of coffee, and then have a cigarette while I was doing that. So I thought, there's no reason for me to go in a bar anymore. I've stopped drowning my thought. I've stopped drowning the present. I've stopped killing the present with alcohol. They just wouldn't let me kill the future with cigarettes. But I didn't know where the future was. I had to keep the cigarettes because until somebody gave me a future to pursue. Well, that's what I mean. I never had a future to pursue until this moment, until I realized what had happened. Okay, here is what I did to protest the 2005 cigarette smoking ban in bars. I said what I was going to do is I wasn't going to buy soda anymore. I didn't keep up with this whole plan that I'd had, but I did make the most important gesture. I said, I'm not going to buy any more soda because that's going to be taxed. I'm going to buy coffee as my source of caffeine from now on because that's considered a food item and is not taxed. So I'm going to drain the state dry of my. I'm going to refuse to give as much tax dollars as I can, sales tax dollars. How dare they prohibit me from killing myself in a place where I would want to poison myself with alcohol? This smoking ban in bars is not going to stand. I said, I'm going to stare at the sun. This is what I said to myself. In protest, I said I was going to do this every time I paid sales tax by mistake. Like every time I needed something where I needed to pay sales tax, which means I needed to give money to the overprotective empire. I needed to have money shaken down from the overprotective. I had to pay sales tax on something. I said, I'm going to stare at the sun for 1 second for every time I pay sales tax. So what I did, I said, oh my God, I bought soda, that was 7 cents of sales tax. I'm going to stare at the sun for 7 seconds. I think it was actually 5 seconds when I stood at the time, but it doesn't matter. My whole point was to stare at the sun. So I said I was going to stare at the sun as a protest. Like, if you overprotective government won't let me smoke a cigarette in a bar that I don't even drink in anymore, I'm going to show you there is a higher power. There is a higher power than the state of Ohio. It's called the sun. That is a fact. There is a higher power than the state of Ohio government. It's called the sun. That's why I stared at this sun for 5 seconds in 2005, so I could tell myself that the sun is more powerful than the state of Ohio government. So I said, fuck government, I'm looking at the sun instead. And I didn't realize at that time, but I was looking for God. I'd recognized that government is the devil and that the sun is God. On that day in 2005, thank you for prohibiting smoking in bars, the state of Ohio. I wouldn't have found that you were the devil and that the sun was God's power if it wasn't for your idiotic smoking ban in 2005. Thank you for helping me find God, you stupid state. Not that the state of Ohio is any stupider than any other states. It is a state. It is the work of the devil. It is the devil's tool. The state is Satan. Government is Satan's power. So that's why I had to stare at this thing to show there's a higher power. Human beings can't do this. This is the real thing. I'd rather have my eyes burn out by the sun than be protected to death by a government. Well, that's the story of how I first found God or looked for God. I was seeking God without even realizing I was seeking for God. I was an atheist, and I knew I was an atheist, but I sought God by looking at the sun as a protest of a law. And that's what I need to do all the time. I need to acknowledge that state power is Satan's power. Which it most certainly is. And the sun is God's power. This here on the earth, that's Satan's power. This here up in the sky, that's God's power. I was smart enough to stare at the sun in 2005 when they prohibited smoking in bars. As a protest to that absurd law. Telling people what to do against their will is an absurd law regardless. You don't fucking tell people to you don't protect people. You don't use force to protect people against their will. You're a fucking devil. You are Satan if you do that, as far as I'm concerned. If you use government to protect people against their will, you're fucking Satan. Well, that's enough of this video. I'll just post this up. Interesting thing to think about. I'm going to post up in good faith. Although I said stuff that are a little more angry than I needed to be. But this just shows how emotional this was. I'm not somebody who wanted to smoke in bars because, oh my gosh, I want to smoke because I don't know if this is bad enough for me. No, I was doing it deliberately to hurt myself, to cut people off of me. I was using cigarettes to cut people off of me, like, get off my ass. I'll kill myself if you don't get off my ass. That's why I was smoking cigarettes, not because I didn't know they were harmful. It's been 13 years since I smoked them. I gave up later on because I realized they weren't working for me anymore. They weren't pissing people off as much anymore.